Hi, you're on the Alice Reddit Stories channel. Subscribe to my channel as well as to my Facebook, the link is in the description. Enjoy watching. I saw this sub soon after I found out 2 months ago, but I was afraid to post and still can't believe I'm writing this. I've never posted on Reddit, so please let me know if I make mistakes. I apologize, this is a bit long. I'll put as much of the facts as I can earlier and then a bit more background after. Short version: partner of 17+ years cheated with prostitutes and has a porn addiction. Reality and identity disintegrating, apparently gaslit for years. Can't live apart as I'm dependent on him to remain in the country for at least the next 2 years. May have missed my window to have children. Both in therapy. I don't know whether to stay with him, I'm exhausted and lost. I found out that I had an STD, and I think I went into some shock/denial, but had to carry on with my day, including an excruciating meetup with a friend and her husband and new baby in all their joy. I don't begrudge them anything, of course, I just found it painful to be faced with all that I was potentially losing. When he got home, I told him, and he went quiet. He finally told me that he had seen prostitutes for oral sex a handful of times over the past 2 years, thought about doing it many times for 5 years, the most recent of which had been just a couple weeks prior. At first, he lied about details, but when I challenged the timeline, he confessed to more. Over the next month, I found out in bits and pieces that he had lied to me about multiple low-level things like spending money and hotel stays. He always wanted us to stay overnight in the city on a whim for fun, and lied when he did it as I wouldn't approve of spending the money. About people he found attractive, he had videoed us years ago without consent, that he has a porn addiction, basically anything he felt I would react badly to, he lied about to make the problem go away. He said he didn't have sex with anyone because he couldn't have excused it as just a massage/just paid oral to himself, and didn't touch them or do more because the place was dirty and they weren't attractive and he was afraid of STDs. Right now, I think I believe that has been the extent of his cheating. I know this sounds incredibly stupid. When he was with me, he was so loving, kind and patient, never raised his voice at me once. Anyone who knows us would say we had the sweetest story. I don't know. All the facts and feelings keep recycling through my head, and it's just a hazy mess. I feel guilty even posting asking for support when so many of you have suffered so badly with affair partners and are in such difficult situations with children involved, and I'm so sorry if this is insulting or irritating, but I am completely alone and don't have anyone to talk to about it. I moved country to live together and have few close friends here, no family. My therapist and the couple's therapist said not to tell anyone unless I'm completely sure we aren't staying together, as I can't take it back and it will make it harder for me to deal with their judgments and opinions. There don't seem to be any support groups in this country. Sometimes I talk myself out of what he did because it wasn't an affair partner and it was paid oral sex, and because I have a background of family abuse, I am never sure of true reality or whether my perspective is self-pitying. I know logically that what I found out makes me not want to be with who he is right now, but do people change with therapy and addiction recovery? Is it true addiction if he only cheated a few times? How could he act so normal around me when he has never been able to keep a secret about anything else to save his life? How did he just compartmentalize so much for so long? He's all I've ever known. How do I truly just give up on 17 years of shared life? How do you know whether you're in love or just love someone after this many years? We were cuddly and loving and sweet every day. Is that enough? This is also complicated as I am dependent on him to stay working in the country. My job is only transferable to a couple of countries that would be worse off for me. He has shown what I think is genuine remorse, attended individual and couples therapy, installed porn blockers and answered all my questions. Who knows if it's the truth, appears distressed when I'm crying, reads books on infidelity/addiction, now MSGs me to tell me wherever he is, and gave me all passwords. But things have required prompting. He didn't disclose everything to me. I had to ask many questions, then he would answer them. He says it wasn't because he was hiding info, but he didn't even think of them as he can't remember everything he has lied about or all the wrong things he has done, and though he offered a tracking app/access to his MSGs and social media, this wasn't really followed through on. I haven't thoroughly checked his accounts or statements because it seems a bit meaningless. He could have secret accounts anyway, or just lie if I ask about things. Overall, I can't trust him. He doesn't have the emotional maturity to be able to reflect or discuss things in a way I need right now. and while I do believe he did genuinely love me to his capacity, it clearly isn't enough. I've gotten lost in giving him time to figure out why he did what he did and his issues with his therapists. Dad was physically abusive, early exposure to porn, but I think we've both lost sight of what he actually did and addressing that. I have struggled alone with my past traumas and therapy for years, and now I'm having to be patient as he finally starts working on himself. I don't want to dismiss anyone's experiences, especially when my own were never validated by people close to me, but hearing him talk about his addiction and trauma feels like excuses, and it's frustrating when I tried so hard to talk to him about all of this for years. We were each other's first and only partners. We had been together since we were teenagers, and I thought we had grown up together, but it turns out I was working towards a healthy shared future on my own. Don't forget to support my channel by subscribing, thank you. We have never had fights. I had always tried to discuss things openly and calmly, bringing up issues on behalf of both of us, asking what he needed and trying to share what I needed, trying to explore any past traumas or hang-ups that might be contributing to current problems, trying to guide him in work progression and when he was stressed or upset, etc., etc. I thought our main issues on my side were him not being an equal partner and trying to move into an age-appropriate stage of life, mid-30s, him not remembering/prioritizing important things/my needs and being very passive, and on his side dealing with my severe depression. I made it into a demanding healthcare role, but was basically a potato on days off and in addition to other health issues found sex unappealing and difficult most of the time. Working through the pandemic made it worse. In recent years, I suggested therapy and couples therapy, and even tried to have a few honest discussions about him needing more than I could offer and maybe he should think about being with someone else. He always insisted he understood and loved me, didn't want anyone else and just wanted to be better for me and help me get better. I know that because of neglect/abuse growing up, I always search for someone I can trust to be an equal partner and take care of me as I do them, to feel safe like I can rely on them and trust their judgment, so I worried it was my expectations that were too high and I was bad for not loving him enough to accept him as he is because he always said he didn't need me to change at all. So even though I often felt frustrated and afraid that we each deserved more and maybe we were just too comfortable after so long, I felt a lot of love for him and was willing to trade the passion/take charge aspects for his loyalty, innocence and kindness. Now that I know that innocence never existed and he has been disloyal for some years, I don't know whether there is enough left to continue with. I don't know what was real and what wasn't, what aspects of him I really know, what memories he was being himself and honest versus lying about not actually wanting to go there or do that, what he really felt for me or what his real opinions are. Maybe the worst part is while I was so desperately trying to get better, suffering, and not understanding why despite years of therapy and effort and hospital treatments I still felt unsafe and insecure and unable to trust my reality/thoughts/feelings or make decisions, he was feeding it by lying and allowing me to think I was the problem and if we just had sex more often things would be better between us. All the times I talked to him about hating my insecurities and hating how I had to question him about everything, he just said things like, "I'm sorry you're unwell, I'm sorry you're feeling so bad, what can I do to help, I'll try harder to be better for you." Anytime I brought up our issues he would get frustrated at himself and say he wasn't good enough, then have a short-lived spurt of motivation and changed behavior that never lasted, and I'd feel guilty for having so many needs and asking for more. Cheating was always a hard line for me, and I have always advised friends who were cheated on that they deserve better, but those were always short relationships and the partners were overtly abusive, horrible people. From what I've seen and heard from friends/reading/the news, truly good men are elusive, and finding someone who's good and shares my values and interests and can put up with my issues seems impossible. I have realized how alone I already was in our relationship, as my day-to-day life and feelings of fear and loneliness haven't changed that much, so it isn't that I'm afraid I can't make it without him. I just don't know what the best thing to do for my future is. The past couple years I tried discussing having children. I was on the fence because I didn't think I'd be able to handle kids with my depression and without a partner I could truly rely on, and he was ambivalent, leaning to no as he didn't want to give up his time and freedom. I have very little energy, so I understood this. Now my window is closing and I may never have children. I don't know whether if I had a better partner it's something I would definitely feel ready for. We were supposed to get married soon, now I may never have my parents at my wedding as they're older. This is probably a silly thing to care about since they weren't very good parents. I haven't been able to give up on my family and have only recently been able to say I was abused by them. I don't know how to give up on him either. My default setting is to get on with things, fix things, try harder. I'm sorry, this was so long and still doesn't cover most of it, but I'll stop. I would be so grateful for some support or advice. I'm so isolated right now. Thank you. Don't forget to support my channel by subscribing. Thank you. I know the title makes it seem like I've made up my mind, but I still don't know if I should. I've known this guy for almost 2 years now. We met off a certain MLM dating app, Addict, but I knew him a bit before messaging him on there to meet up. I've never really been a hookup guy, so I took him on a few dates before we did anything, which is surprisingly uncommon in gay circles. After our third or so date, he mentioned that I'm the first person he's ever gone on an actual date with and that he would usually just hook up with people and ghost them. I was kinda shocked by this cause I'm the complete opposite, being a bit of a hopeless romantic man myself, but it made me feel special that he enjoyed what we were doing and taking it slow. Fast forward about a month and he asked me to be his boyfriend. The way he asked was a bit different than what I was expecting, i.e. we were at his mate's barbecue and introduced me as his boyfriend without having any sort of conversation before this. Of course I was happy to be this person for him and I told him that was okay, but we still needed a conversation. That conversation really never came up, but we just decided to roll with it as we both very much enjoyed each other's company. About a month after that, on one of our usual dates, he started getting really awkward and saying that we should take a break since he's super busy with work and that I'm still in university and busy as well. Both of these things were true at the time. We could only really meet up once a week, if that, due to our schedules. At first, I didn't really grasp what he was saying since I've always been on the other side of dumping someone. I figured it was for the best, and he definitely needed to work on himself and his priorities when it came to relationships. We called it quits the next day officially, and I've never been more heartbroken. I went into a complete spiral, going full on into the hookup culture and going against a lot of my morals as a person. Later that year, we ended up meeting each other again, this time as a more FWB scenario. It was at this point I started catching feelings again, and eventually I told him I loved him. He said it back, but some part of me still thinks it was an empty promise. Especially since a few months later he starts to stop contacting me and totally disappears from my life altogether for a solid 7 months with no apparent reason. I was devastated after this, not getting myself into any sort of relationship, hookup or otherwise that entire time. I mainly just wanted to focus on me. I grew a lot over these months and really changed my life. I took up new hobbies, got a hefty promotion at work, cut my hair, got tattoos, the whole 9 yards. He even messaged me on Valentine's Day saying how he missed me, and I was his first Valentine's and such, and I just ignored it. Around halfway through this year, I end up going to his place of work with a group of friends and we get to talking again, and it seemed like nothing had changed. We were both still super flirty and he seemed genuinely happy to see me again. We go for a drink after he was finished with work and needed up making out for a good 2 hours. I wanted to go further, but I knew I needed a talk with him first. We had a talk the next week and decided that if anything it would just be a FWB situation. That never came to be because a week or so after that his boss came to me and asked if I wanted a job at the same place he worked, making him essentially my co-boss. All was well for about a month. I'm good at professional work relationships and everyone there knew we once dated. Then one night at after work drinks, we ended up sleeping together as the tension was just too much to ignore. I felt dirty after, I'm not sure why, but I did. I still loved him, but our current situation made the scenario a bit difficult. I still love him and he still says it to me, despite everything. About a week ago, I really understood how much I love him. Long story short, there was a fight at a bar we were at and we both got involved just to help get people out of the middle of it who weren't involved. He ended up getting hit, which made me see red. I couldn't stand him getting hurt while I did nothing. I'm not a big guy, but in that moment I didn't care what happened to me as long as he was safe. I ended up getting knocked out, and when I came to, I woke up in his arms and he was crying. I've never seen this man cry, and neither have any of his friends. He was so worried and scared for me and said that he couldn't imagine a world where I wasn't a part of it. So here I am now, concussed, laying in my bed with nothing else to do but think. I love this man so desperately, I'm willing to do anything to protect him. I've never said I love you to anyone, and I can't think of anyone barring family that I'd put myself at risk for. I just want to lay in a field and watch the stars with this man. I want to braid flowers into his hair. I want to stay up all night and debate who has the best ass on God, even though we both know it's Jon Snow. I can see my whole world in this man, and he makes me feel like I'm an actual person and makes me feel loved despite all the heartbreak I've felt. I really think he's a changed man from when we first met. I'm still his first and only boyfriend. I've met his family, and he always introduces me to new people as his first boyfriend. All of his friends tell me how much I mean to him and really wrote for us to be together. I need to tell him how much he means to me, even if it goes without saying. I just need to know if I really do mean as much to him as he does to me. So that's why I'm planning on confessing everything I am to him, and even if he doesn't feel the same, at least I'll know that it's finally time to move on. Should I do it? Or should I just keep things the way they are and hope we end up together? TLDR, I really love this guy I've known for 2 years, even though I've been burned by him a few times. But now I really understand how much I actually love him and want to let him know. Extra notes: he's pretty bad at communication, if that wasn't clear. His mom runs an organization that is doing what I'm studying and desperately wants me to work for her when I graduate in a few months. He will also be working for this organization sometime next year. Sorry if this is a bit unclear or too long, I'm still recovering from my concussion. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel. There are many interesting articles ahead.